Coming up on Network Africa, residents and security forces say gunfire heard at an army base in Kati, about 15 kilometers outside Mali's capital, Bamako. Mauritius arrests captain of ship that spilled hundreds of tons of oil off the coast of the island. Plus, South Africa begins first day of reduced restrictions with more businesses allowed to open under level 2 lockdown. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. A military spokesperson has confirmed gunfire at an army base near Mali's capital, Bamako, with the Norwegian embassy talking of a possible military mutiny amid an ongoing political crisis in the Sahel state. Soldiers fired their guns into the air in a military base in Kati, a town that's about 15 kilometers from Bamako. Eyewitnesses say the armored tanks and military vehicles could also be seen on the streets of Kati. Now, the Norwegian embassy says it had received information that troops are on their way to the capital, and in an alert to its citizens says it's been notified of a mutiny in the armed forces. The French embassy has also advised people to stay at home. Amidst this, President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta is said to have been taken to an unknown safe place, and Al Jazeera reports that there have been several arrests, including senior military officers working with the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the Minister for Foreign Affairs, and also the Minister of Finance. All of this comes as the leader is under increased pressure to step down in the face of large opposition protests that regional body ECOWAS has been trying to mediate. Meanwhile, the opposition in Mali says it will intensify anti-government protests starting Tuesday and culminate in a mass rally on Friday and Saturday. Representatives of the June 5th movement, M5, said they had stepped up protests against President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta as they continue to call for his resignation. A series of protests, including a women's march, have been planned for this week. The opposition has blamed the government for economic decline, alleging corruption and a long-running jihadist conflict. Regional efforts to bring an end to the crisis have also failed, with the opposition refusing to compromise on their demand that the president resigns. Now, Alester Wilcox joins us now on the program, African Affairs Analyst, to discuss more on this. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you, Larry. It's my pleasure to be with you.
Now, what do you think is playing out in Mali, especially with this latest incident of reported mutiny in the armed forces?
Well, the reports are still very sketchy. For instance, it's just the Norwegian embassy and maybe part of French embassy that is raising the alarm. But you don't expect that these things will not come to pass since the political leadership has continued to be on each other's throats. The next thing is for the military to get involved, but that would be a very terrible chapter in trying to resolve the conflict in Mali. There is penchant by African military establishments to want to intervene in government, citing irreconcilable differences between the political actors. This crisis has dragged on for too long, and I think the military is getting very worried because don't forget the military is at the receiving end in trying to bring the conflict, the sectarian conflict that is going on in Mali. So if the political leadership is not clearly in place in order, it will affect the military activity. So they are bound to react one way or the other, but that's going to send a very terrible signal and create a different dimension altogether if that is allowed to happen.
And the regional body, ECOWAS, has been trying to mediate this political crisis in the country. Despite this, the opposition has vowed to continue its anti-government protests till President Keïta steps down. Do you think this will solve the crisis?
Of course, certainly it will not, because President Keïta just won a second term. Was it not 2 years ago, last year or 2 years ago? And I do not understand, not see an African leader on account of protest by the opposition to abdicate his office. The ECOWAS, how forceful have they been? To what extent has their mediation been in terms of bringing pressure to bear? Because really and truly, those who take up arm against the state or those who have resolved to protest or to go in contrast to wanting to remove a government by force must have some entrenched interest. So, except a proportionate force is brought to bear on those parties, they may not want to give up. That is basic of human sociology. So I do not know the enormous pressure that the ECOWAS leaders has bring to bear on the opposition, because certainly and truly, there's no way the ECOWAS leaders would tell President Carter to resign based on the demands of the opposition. It wouldn't happen. So it's only to pacify the opposition or bring strong pressure that cannot be resisted, to bear on them. Because yes, it's an internal affair of Mali, but at the same time, if there's any upheaval in Mali, then West Africa will suffer for it. It might even West Africa. So it's
All right, Mr. Alester Wilcox, African Affairs Analyst, thank you so much for speaking to us. We do wish we had much more time to do that. Let's move on to Ethiopia, where the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has reshuffled his cabinet, dropping a former close ally, Defense Minister Lema Megessa. Mr. Lema was recently suspended from the ruling party's executive committee for failing to discharge his duties. That's according to the Prime Minister's office. Now, Takele Uma, the mayor of the capital, Addis Ababa, and Attorney General Adanej Abebie have also been affected by the reshuffle. Mr. Takele has now been appointed as the mines minister. There is, however, no indication if Mr. Adanej will have a new position in his cabinet. Now, the captain of the ship that spilled hundreds of tons of oil off the coast of Mauritius has been arrested. Police say 58-year-old Sunil Nandeshwar was charged with endangering safe navigation. Mr. Nandeshwar made an appearance in the district court in the capital, Port Louis, to hear the charges and will be held in a police cell until he returns to court on the 25th of August. In the meantime, more countries are lending a helping hand to clean up the oil spilled. Another Japanese team is to be dispatched on Wednesday as the disaster relief team of 6 experts already in the country say they would focus on mangroves, beaches and wetlands. Experts say the amount of oil spilled from the Japanese-owned ship nearby the lagoons and coastal areas of Southeast is relatively low compared to the big oil spills the world has seen in the past, but the damage it will do is going to be huge and long-lasting. A Japanese disaster relief team helping to clean up a devastating oil spill off Mauritius is focusing on mangroves, beaches and wetlands after most of the oil at sea had been collected. Keiji Takechi is the deputy team leader.
We heard that the Mauritius government in charge of handling marine affairs has instructed the salvage company to take the boat offshore and let it sink in water. There is almost no oil floating at sea. The next step is to clean the beaches and minimize the impact on the environment as much as possible.
The Japanese bulk carrier MV Wakashio struck a coral reef on July 25th, spilling about 1,000 tons of fuel oil, damaging the waters and endangering fish and other marine life in what some scientists have called the country's worst ecological disaster. Japan sent 6 officials, mainly oil spill experts, to Mauritius last week and plans to send another team of Environment Ministry officials and specialists this week. Scientists say that the full impact of the spill is still unfolding and the damage could impact Mauritius and its tourism-dependent economy for decades. France, the United Nations and India have also sent teams to offer aid in the cleanup. South Africa's alcohol and tobacco industry have roared back to life after weeks of being banned under lockdown. Across the cities, liquor stores were seen opening up for businesses, with queues of customers lining up quite early this morning in some cases. President Cyril Ramaphosa had announced on Saturday that the country would be moving to level 2 lockdown, removing a number of restrictions, including the lifting of the ban on the sale of alcohol and tobacco products. Mixed reactions have trailed the president's speech, but for those whose businesses had been closed for many months, it's a welcome relief.
I'm feeling okay because it's been a long time since we are not working, but at least the government, he gave us a chance this time to open our business. I think things will be okay, and I'm feeling okay about this, which we don't know what will happen after this, but so now it's okay.
Yeah, I think with the hope is there that we're going to recover. Because my tavern is not that big. It's just taking only 38 people. So, yeah, I think we have to control the situation. And we have to push too much maybe the takeaways. That is going to help us that could to prevent people not overcrowded.
The alcohol and tobacco openings, for me, I feel it's a little bit premature because the initial reason why it was removed, it was because of how it affected people going to hospitals, the doctors, like there were a few doctors and there were a lot of things that had to deal with like corona and stuff. So that's why I feel like it's a little bit premature to open alcohol so quickly when we don't even know if there's going to be a second wave or, yeah.
I respect that Mr. President has now gave us an opportunity as small business owners that we can now operate our businesses. Thinking of coronavirus, there was not much activity for small businesses, so now we can at least try to sell our products and put our products in the market again.
When the pandemic forced his South African safari business to abruptly close, Nan du Toit was relieved he'd taken out an insurance policy against losses caused by contagious diseases. However, he received a letter rejecting his claim after initially declining to pay out on COVID-related claims on business interruption policies. Insurance companies in some countries are now settling with clients or offering interim relief as court battles play out.
Nan du Toit Safari Camp in South Africa's Pilanesberg National Park lies abandoned and litter-strewn, some of its tents ripped open by baboons. Coronavirus restrictions have left his business at the mercy of nature and its survival in the hands of an insurer who has rejected his claim. The interim relief payment du Toit received from his insurer, intended to tide struggling clients over while court battles payout, amounted to only 11% of his around 3 million rand claim and was spent, including on overdue wages and debts, in a matter of hours. A bigger payout hinges on a court case that may not be resolved before his time runs out. If he can't convince reluctant bankers or other investors to inject cash, he said his business, including 3 tented safari camps and 19 staff, could be lost by the end of October.
Make no mistake, I'm grateful for that money because it takes a little bit of stress off me and a few of the other guys that I owed money to. But I'm in a position that if I had that payment or that cover paid out in March, I wouldn't have had this issue where I am now.
Insurers say that their policies were not designed to cover the cataclysmic fallout of the pandemic, and honouring claim in full could destabilise the industry. Du Toit staff clean up as Impala graze in the car park. It's uncertain when they will return to the site again. Like his colleagues, Thomas Ntisi, a camp host, relies on the job to support his family and also pay for his teacher's training. Now he can't pay the bills and gets food parcels from his local church.
But if ever I lose this job, I won't be able to do a lot of things. Like I won't be able to pay for my, like school finances, and then as well as helping at home as well. All along, we've been paying them to say, you guys have to insure us. So this payback time, like they have to do the same thing that we have been doing to them.
Elsewhere, like the United Kingdom and Australia, regulators have launched legal test cases that aim to clarify whether insurers must pay. In the meantime, companies have been left with nothing.
Still ahead on the program. Mosques and beaches reopen in Algeria amid eased coronavirus restrictions. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. A new analysis by the Pew Charitable Trusts and System IQ finds that without immediate and sustained action, the annual flow of plastic into the ocean could nearly triple by 2040. The study also identifies solutions that could cut this volume by more than 80% using technologies that are available today if key decision makers are willing to make system-wide changes.
The amount of plastic waste flowing into the ocean and killing marine life could triple in the next 20 years unless companies and governments can drastically reduce plastic production. If no action is taken, the amount of plastic going into the sea every year will rise from 11 million tons to 29 million tons, leaving a cumulative 600 million tons swelling in the ocean by 2040. The equivalent weight of 3 million blue whales. The new research produced by scientists and industry experts for the new charitable trust and systemic offers solutions that could cut the projected volume of plastic entering the ocean by more than 80%.
Pollution is something that affects everyone. It isn't your problem and not my problem. It's not one country's problem. It's everyone's problems because all people, all communities, all governments around the world recognize that it's a problem. It's impacting communities.
The strategy laid out in the report include redirecting hundreds of billions of dollars in plastic production investment into alternative materials, recycling facilities, and waste collection expansion in developing countries. This would require a U-turn by the energy industry, which is rapidly building new chemical plants around the world to boost plastic output as its traditional fuel business is eroded by a rise in cleaner energy sources.
At the same time, we'd be requiring corporations and companies who are, the main purveyors of disposable plastics to invest in alternative delivery systems.
The amount of plastic produced annually has been climbing fast since 1950, when global production totaled 2 million tons. In 2017, that number was 348 million tons and is expected to double again by 2040, the study estimates. The paper recommends that government implement laws to discourage new plastic production and provide subsidies for reusable alternatives. But current government and corporate commitments will only reduce the amount of plastic flowing into the ocean by 7% by 2040.
A new report by wildlife trade specialist Traffic shows overfishing from industrial trawlers in the waters of the Republic of Congo is threatening endangered aquatic life. This is also forcing artisanal fishermen to catch more sharks already at risk of extinction and call for urgent improvement in the legislation and management of shark fishing.
Every day, fishmongers in Congo Republic pile up hundreds of dead sharks on the shore, lopping up fins and battering over hammerheads and other endangered species. But it's coming at a cost. The Wildlife Trade Monitoring Network, Traffic, is calling for stronger measures to cut down on shark fishing in West Africa to avert wiping out endangered species in its latest report. Artisanal fishermen are harvesting between 400 and 1,000 sharks and rays per day, according to surveys they conducted last year. The fishermen say they don't have a choice. A rise in industrial fishing by dozens of mainly Chinese trawlers in Congolese waters is eroding their livelihoods. This fisherman says he's seen a dramatic fall in shark numbers.
At the time, we could fish 100 sharks, 120 sharks, 40 sharks, 50 sharks, 60, 70. But since the arrival of the Chinese, it's complicated.
Worldwide, shark populations are in trouble due to industrial fishing and the practice of finning or slicing off shark fins for a soup considered a Chinese delicacy. Traffic says it wants to see fish net regulations applied more stringently as fishermen are killing too many juvenile hammerheads and rays. But the Director General of Fisheries and Aquaculture says they don't have the right monitoring tools to apply a workable strategy and save the sharks.
Our problem today is that we need partners who can help us evaluate shark resources in our waters, because in Congo, there is not enough information about the shark species. We fish them, we know how to do that, but the stock is unknown.
Traffic says the lack of solid statistics, inadequate monitoring and continued illegal overfishing will have, quote, dire effects on the fish resources and the local economy.
Now, Algerians can now go back to praying in their mosques and playing at the beach, as both places have been reopened in the country, even as the government eases coronavirus lockdown measures. Many residents in the capital had the opportunity to jump into the Mediterranean Sea for the first time in months.
Following 5 months of partial confinement, Algerians will now be able to go to restaurants, cafes, beaches and hotels.
We are happy that the beaches have been reopened. We were traumatized by the coronavirus, and so it's a good initiative, but I don't think people will follow the directive. I hope people will respect the rules set by the state.
Mosques with a capacity of more than 1,000 worshippers can also reopen, though Friday prayers, which attract larger numbers of people, will remain banned throughout the country. The use of air conditioners in mosques is also banned, as does a prohibition of access for women, vulnerable people, and children under 15 years.
We began today by saying during the call to prayer, pray in the mosque instead of praying at home. Here we are gaining a new space for awareness and prevention. We have taken all the preventive measures stipulated by the medical authorities.
In addition, social distancing must be enforced and face masks are compulsory, with the government warning that any violation of preventive measures would prompt it to reimpose more restrictions. The North African country has so far reported over 38,100 coronavirus cases, including more than 1,360 deaths.
And that's where we end the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.